Separate Telangana demand. In the entire course of history, we had some typical timings or some junctures where whenever the Telangana demand is coming forward, you have hurdles. There are many types of hurdles. You see, when the state government or central government are together, they wanted to stop the demand for separate Telangana state at any cost. At any cost, remember. At any cost means they don't want to give or heed to the demand of separate Telangana state. So they come up with new set of things. Many a times, for example, sometimes they come up with a committee or a commission or something else or brutal repression. And in such scenarios, we have some serious hurdles when Telangana was not becoming a reality and the central government's adamant nature was very, very visible. And Indira Gandhi, whenever we want to talk about Telangana, 1969 movement, it is Indira Gandhi, who was the Prime Minister then, was adamant and never wanted to support or at least heed to the demand of Telangana. She said firm no for separate state. Further, she had many other reasons. For example, the internal crisis inside her party, and some more times like if you are ready to accept the demand of Telangana, what will happen? The other demands, the other states' demands will also crop up. So, many a times we can see the central government never wanted to take the demand into what you call consideration, but they wanted to stop the demand at any cost. Like in this scenario, what is happening? Indira Gandhi is trying to scuttle the demand for Telangana by repression, that is number one, or by making some false promises, or trying to help the leadership, that is state chief minister, giving him more powers, taking his version as the great thing, his version as the important thing, stopped Telangana. And in such scenario, we can see the best example is Indira Gandhi is coming out with formulas. Formula is singular, formulae is plural. But many a times we call formulas, we use. So for our convenience, I am using the term formulas. That is 8-point formula, 5-point formula and 6-point formula. Indira Gandhi considered this as the magic wand. She used to think that once you are ready to heed this demand, you have to give Telangana. So for that, what you have to do is give some concessions or give some what you call some institutions through some formulas, create some institutions or committees, and Telangana people will sit quiet. This is the background. Indira Gandhi is the one who has brought in 3 types of formulas in 3 different periods. The first formula is 8-point formula, second one is 5-point, then 6-point. So all these formulas are coming at a juncture when the movement is at its peak or the political situation is ripe. So first let's deal with the 8-point formula. Before going to this 8, 5 or 6, another general aspect I would like to talk is Indira Gandhi was always bringing out some formulas, as I told. Not only this, we can talk about the 20-point formula by Indira Gandhi. Whenever there was a crisis in India, politically, administratively, in his party, in her party, or inside the country, some crisis, she is bringing out some formulas. 20-point formula, this is for your general understanding I am talking about. In India, 20-point formula is the formula which was brought in by a prime minister in which she was talking about many welfare schemes. So she always felt that you can curtail the demands of the people or democracy by bringing in such things. And this is 8-point formula. In all these formulas, one general thread is there. There is nothing new. As we started our journey with the gentleman agreement. A gentleman agreement and the demands which were put forth in gentleman agreement should be implemented. It was not implemented. They were not implemented. So, Telangana demand has risen. But when you are talking about stopping the same Telangana movement, What they are doing is bringing out the aspects from gentleman agreement or the demands or the what you call grows of Telangana and producing or some institution they are creating and bringing like formulas. This is the essence of all these formulas. Now let's see the first one, that is 8-point formula. What was the background for this 8-point formula? As we all know, 1969 January is the period when the movement of Jai Telangana started very intensely. Started in January and within no time, within 1 week, it caught like a wildfire in entire Telangana. By 20th or 21st, by the month end, it was spread throughout Telangana state or Telangana region. We can't call it a state, Telangana region. In this background, the political movement was going in Telangana, and what was happening in Parliament? There were discussions, debates, especially by the people who are like Narayan Reddy, those who are raising the demand of Telangana in Parliament. At the same time, there were some situations like those who are not from Andhra Pradesh, like the socialist leader Madhulimaye. Madhulimaye was a socialist leader. He was against all the undemocratic attitudes in the country. So Madhulimaye once has introduced a privilege motion against the then CM, that is Kasu Brahmanand Reddy in Lok Sabha. He was saying that Brahmanand Reddy's statement saying that center talking about the situation in Andhra Pradesh is like intervening in the affairs of the state. So in Lok Sabha, he introduced this privilege motion against Kasu Brahmanand Reddy, and there was a debate. And this debate, definitely, this is the first time, though some attempts are there to talk about Telangana in Parliament. And this is the time when this privilege motion has come. So many things were coming out in a detailed manner. Discussion about Telangana was happening. In this background, there were parties which are participating in the election, in the debates in Lok Sabha, and some parties supported. Even Jan Sangh was critical of the Indira's attitude towards Telangana, and the parties which supported thoroughly the Telangana demand always was the Swatantra party led by N.G. Ranga in the center. Means N.G. Ranga was a parliamentarian. He supported Telangana demand always. And the other one is Gautulachana, a state leader. Swatantra party. Remember this party? This is the party which was the first party to support Telangana officially, Swatantra party. Then Republican Party of India. This Republican Party of India, a Dalit orientation party. Republican Party of India, a party started by Ambedkar, B.R. Ambedkar, and Republican Party also supported the cause of Telangana always. So, in this background, Telangana is in the discussions in the center at Delhi. So, in this background, on one side, there is an intense movement. Violence is going on in Telangana. Brutal repression is happening. By this time, many people fell to the bullets of the state. So finally, what has happened? All-party meeting was convened by the Prime Minister, and this all-party meeting could see some of the discussions. If we see the last phase of our Telangana movement also, all-party meetings are very important. There was an all-party meeting just before 9th December declaration of Chidambaram in Hyderabad. All-party meetings, 2 rounds in Delhi, asking all the representatives of the, asking all the parties to send their representatives and express the opinion on Telangana. Because in a democracy, all parties should give their opinion either inside Parliament or in the official meetings. This will be recorded and taken into considerations when you take a decision. So all-party meeting was convened by the PM, and this all-party meeting was a crucial one before spelling out or before declaring the 8 points for Telangana. So, after this all-party meeting, the Prime Minister met Home Minister Y.B. Chavan and Congress President Nijalingappa and other leaders like Kamaraj and Chief Minister Brahmanand Reddy. All these peoples, all these important leaders were consulted by Indira Gandhi. Consulting Nijalingappa or Kamaraj is to make a point that inside the party she had the support. And consulting Brahmanand Reddy is to get the opinion And unfortunately, Brahmanand Reddy opinion was the only opinion which was spelt in all these things. Because in the declaration, when she declared in the parliament all these formulas, the expression was like that. She used to say, she said when she declared, like every point, before every point, as the chief minister advised, as the chief minister opined, and everything is attributed to chief minister, that is Brahmanand Reddy. So considering the statement of Indira Gandhi in the Lok Sabha, we can see the impact or the stamp of Brahmanand Reddy on this 8-point formulae. The same Brahmanand Reddy was there when who was issuing GO number 36. This GO number 36 is this was the first attempt to stop the demand. This came in the first month of its hesitation itself, in January itself. So here also Brahmanand Reddy's opinion was carried into this 8-point formulae. So who were there Indira Gandhi met apart from the leaders inside the party or Brahmanand Reddy? From Telangana, Chenna Reddy was consulted, V.B. Raju, and V.B. Raju, interesting point is V.B. Raju is from Telangana, always representing Telangana, but V.B. Raju was a settler. He was taking the interests of the settlers in Hyderabad state. Before this also, even in Hyderabad state, he was the minister. So he was a representative of settlers in Telangana and he was being consulted. And then Nukala Ramachandra Reddy. These three people were important leaders who were who were consulted by Indira Gandhi. Then from Andhra, it was Kakani Venkataratnam, who was the leader of Jayandhra movement in the next phase, 1973 Jayandhra. Kakani Venkataratnam, Kotta Raghuramaya and Damodaram Sanjeevayya. So these three leaders from Andhra were consulted. Then on 11th April, after deliberations, after thorough or complete deliberations with all these leaders, Indira Gandhi declared the 8-point formula in Lok Sabha. And she said the aim or the objective of this 8-point formula was to provide for the development of Telangana, efforts to provide or steps to provide employment to Telangana people. This was the main essence. Means development and employment. So let's see what were the important points under this 8-point formula. So first point, a high power committee under the chairmanship of a retired or a sitting Supreme Court judge to assess the surplus of Telangana. I will first give the complete point, then I will discuss. Then the committee will be comprised of an economist who is well acquainted with the state's economic resources, and a representative of Comptroller and Auditor General shall be the members of this committee, and report should come by the end of May. She is declaring the formula in April and giving the time for May. So this 1.5 month or 2 months period maximum, the report should come out. The essence of this point is to assess the surplus. Why surplus? Again, go back to your gentleman agreement. Surplus of Telangana should be spent on Telangana, and it was not being done. Whenever they are demanding, whenever people are demanding, whenever Telangana is demanding, they are hushing up the things. So now this formula is talking about the surplus. This is 1969 and Telangana was merged, or Hyderabad state was merged. Part of Telangana in Hyderabad state was merged in 1956. 13 years of history, 13 years of deviating the funds from Telangana. So they have to talk about. This is the first point. High power committee to assess the surplus. Then second one, discussions to be held between the central finance, home ministers and planning commission and the state government to decide about spending the surplus funds of Telangana. Funds should be provided to fill the loss incurred by Telangana. This point number 2 has two things. One is, after the assessment of funds, what the government has to do? It has to decide upon how to spend this surplus. How to spend this surplus means the first point is related to assessment of surplus, second point is related to the expenditure of surplus, how to spend the surplus. Then third point is, if surplus is there, what has happened to the surplus? So funds should be provided to fill the loss incurred by Telangana, because that surplus was used by the United Andhra Pradesh government. So you don't have surplus anywhere. So you have to fill that gap. And this committee has these discussions, the deliberation between these departments, representatives, that is Finance, Home and Planning Commission, should discuss from where the funds has to be brought in. So this is point number 2. There is a proverb in Telugu like Alu ledu, Chulu ledu, Koduku peru Somalingam. See, first point is talking about the surplus, assess it, then this point is talking about expenditure. But we will see after this 8-point formula what has happened with these committees. What was the assessment of surplus? What considerations was there before the committees when they were assessing the surplus? Ultimately, all these points are gone. It was not being implemented. But when you are talking about when you are declaring the point, you have an intention to assess the surplus and spend the surplus and decide how to spend the surplus. So this is point number 2. Then third point, a high-level official committee under the chairmanship of Chief Minister to advise the state government in implementing developmental activities under 5-year plans, deciding targets and implementing the activities of Telangana. This is a general orientation. A committee will be set up to decide or to advise the government. Who is the government? The government is headed by the Chief Minister, and another committee is being set up, and this committee will advise the Chief Minister. So who will be the members of the committee? That is Planning Commission member, ministers from Telangana and the chairman of TRC. If we have to comment on this point, think about the Telangana Regional Council. That was the first term we have used. Council was there to do all these things. But now what has happened? They did not do anything about the council, made it as a committee, and from the implementation body or decision making body to advisory body. And now they are talking about the same situation, talking about an institution similar to that, but again an advisory and chaired by Chief Minister. The grouse of Telangana is we don't have representation in the cabinet also. Chief Ministers are from Andhra Pradesh, no Deputy CM, no questioning of, no taking the advice of the TRC. So now again an institution is coming up with the chairman, with the Chief Minister as the chairman. Again the ministers from Telangana were the members. The same provision was there in gentleman agreement. The problem is in the entire exercise, they are repeating the same thing which was promised and again creating a new formula. This is the essence. Next, fourth point, an officials committee to implement the decided plans. Representatives of central, home, finance departments and the state government as members. Means an official committee to implement the decided plans. This is an official committee. This is an executive. So members will be representatives of central, home and finance departments, and third one is the representatives of state government as members. See, if you don't have this formula also, if the government is coming out with some plan or proposal, it is the same thing the government has to do. Now what the point is saying is, yeah, it is creating an officials committee to implement it. Actually, this is like not what you call, if there is a wound on the body, we have to what you call give medication to stop the wound or to the root cause. But instead what the thing is, all these points are like something, rubbing something on the wound so that you will not feel pain, that's it. The main reason for the pain, the disease or the wound which is deeply cut should be treated first, and instead it is like rubbing some balm on the pain. That is this committee. So this is fourth point. Then fifth point, more powers to Telangana Regional Committee and the bodies formed in due course. More powers to Telangana Regional Committee. What has happened to all these days? Telangana Regional Council was not formed and committee was formed, and whatever the powers the Telangana Regional Committee had was not being seriously taken. And now talking the same thing again, more powers to TRC and to the bodies which are formed in due course for Telangana. This is like a promise, a poll promise, an empty promise. There is no concrete thing in this point. More powers means what? You can interpret this like anything. So this is the fifth point. Then sixth, the central government shall explore the possibilities to provide constitutional safeguards for Telangana in employment, shall consult a body of jurists. This point is coming in the wake of the court judgments. Many court judgments came by this time. This is April. Twice or thrice, that like Alladi Kuppuswamy judgment or Vo Chinnapareddy judgment or HC High Court's bench has come out with a judgment. High Court full bench has come out with a judgment. So there is a problem in interpreting mulki rules through the constitutional provisions. So the sixth point is to address the legal issues, to address the constitutional provisions, because in India, Hyderabad has a different history. The history is completely different because the state of Hyderabad is getting merged into Indian Union. When it was being merged, some of the provisions which were there, because these are the conditions you have to give, these are the promises you have to give, these are the concessions you have to give when the Indian government has merged Hyderabad state. Likewise Kashmir, likewise Hyderabad. Some special provisions are there for such areas. Not only here, there are some provisions from Northeast too, for Northeast too. These special provisions should be taken into consideration and the safeguard should be continued. So in this background, this 8-point formula is talking about looking into the constitutional aspect of providing employment. That is nothing but Mulki rules or Mulki Act. Locals getting the share, lion's share in employment. Means majority of the jobs should be given to locals. This is the essence of this. So the promise or the point which is talking about consulting a committee, appointing a committee, and this body of jurists will definitely look into the constitutional safeguards, whether it has to be amended, whether it is feasible, first of all, whether it is feasible or not. So this is the sixth point. Then seventh point, Central Advisory Committee under the chairmanship of UPSC shall visit Hyderabad, meet the government employees to know their grievances and make recommendations to Home Minister. This point is talking about a committee under the leadership of the chairman of UPSC, Union Public Service Commission. What is the role of the UPSC in India? UPSC is the body which which is not only conducting examinations, it is also talking about the service conditions, improvements in the service conditions, and many things, personal grievances, everything come under the Ministry of Personnel, Union Ministry of Personnel. So this Ministry of Personnel, UPSC is coming under. So this UPSC chairman will come, chairman and a committee under his leadership, his or her leadership, should come to Hyderabad, visit Hyderabad, talk to the employees, take their opinions, talk about their grievances, collect the grievances. What are the grievances of employees? One is in employment. First is employment. Second thing is promotions. Or third one is about cadre. Cadre means fixing the cadre. What is the nature or level of the particular employee? That first cadre 1, cadre 2 post, that is fixing the cadres. Then last one is service conditions. Telangana employees were always complaining about this aspect. So this committee will look into that aspect. This is about the seventh one. Then eighth one, the Prime Minister shall hold meetings with the Chief Minister and the members of the above mentioned committees timely, that is twice in a year, to pay attention towards the issues of Telangana. Means once the formulas are coming into effect, means being implemented, so you have to check whether these things are getting implemented or not. So this last point is providing a space for regular review of the things happening. Means twice in a year. Means every 6 months, the Prime Minister will meet all the members or the chairmen of the committee and review what are the things happening under this 8-point formula. This is the 8-point formula of Indira Gandhi. But what has happened? This formula could not satisfy neither the Telangana activists nor the political parties. All the political parties rejected it, saying that it's an empty promise. And many Telangana activists said that we want separate Telangana. We have a lot of water has flown in Ganges. This could have been done in the first years of the state formation, that is United Andhra Pradesh formation. But now talking about it is nonsense. So Telangana activists rejected it, and the political parties also did not welcome the 8-point formula thoroughly. So what has happened? In the process of implementation of 8-point formula, some committees were formed. After declaring this 8-point formula, what was happening? To implement this 8-point formula, Indira Gandhi has declared in Lok Sabha. Now the ball has to roll on. The wheel has to roll on. So on 17th April, the declaration was made on 11th April in Lok Sabha. On 17th April, 2 committees were formed. One is Telangana Development Committee. As we have seen, a committee to implement the plans was there. A committee to decide upon the plans was there. So taking the cue from these points, these 2 committees were constituted. One is Telangana Development Committee. Second one is Plan Implementation Committee. This is happening on 17th April. Then on 19th April, the government, the central government has appointed a committee. Justice retired Vanchu, K.N. Vanchu, was appointed to look into the constitutional safeguards, that legal body we talked about, that is jurists, consulting the jurists to consider the constitutional safeguards for employment for Telangana. So Justice Vanchu committee, K.N. Vanchu, Kailasnath Vanchu committee was appointed to look into the constitutional safeguards for Telangana. And this committee came out with a report as the government wanted. What the committee said was, safeguards is not possible. Providing safeguards is against the constitution, because in one case, in Golconda case was a case which Golconda versus state of Punjab. This case was there in the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court in that case said that the Parliament could not curtail any of the fundamental rights in the Constitution. Means curtailing the fundamental rights is the problem. So Golconda case is the precedence the Vanchu committee has taken and said that, as the Golconda case says, the Parliament cannot curtail the fundamental right. What is the fundamental right here they are talking about? Fundamental right of a person of other region getting employment in Telangana. So taking this cue, the Vanchu committee said that safeguards is not possible. Means whatever we were discussing about the Mulki and safeguards for employment is completely watered down. So in the 8-point formula, one committee which has to look into the safeguards for employment is gone within 1 month or 2 months. So next, committees to implement 8-point formula, the other committees, like on 22nd April, Justice Vasishtha Bhargava committee was appointed. This Vasishtha Bhargava committee was to assess the surplus. We talked about the first point, that is a committee to assess the surplus. This assessment of surplus is very important. Vasishtha Bhargava committee has assessed the surplus and it gave the report. That report is very disappointing. Vasishtha Bhargava, who was assisted by some other people, 2 other people, and 3 people committee, came out with the surplus as 28.34 crores. Means 28.34 crores was the surplus till that period. It was too little. Surplus of Telangana which was spent illegally, they are assessing it as 28.34. Before this, there was a committee known as Kumar Lalit committee. Kumar Lalit committee assessed the surplus as 34.10 crores. we were not satisfied with that amount. We were not satisfied with that number. And we said it was more surplus, but it is less expressed in Kumar Lalit committee. Again, now also you can see Vasishtha Bhargava committee has come out with the number which is much lesser than the earlier committee, that is Kumar Lalit committee. So Telangana people are rejecting it. We are not happy with this committee too. So next, what is the essence of this 8-point formula? Telangana was not happy with the 8-point formula, and 8-point formula could not achieve any spelt objectives because the committees appointed by the center were not yielding the results. This surplus committee of Vasishtha Bhargava is getting less surplus. Vanshu committee said no constitutional safeguards. Then what will be the result? What are the aims? Can we think about the any betterment for Telangana through 8-point formula? No, certainly. So 8-point formula was not a solution for Telangana. This is about 8-point formula. In the next topic, we will be talking about in the next part of this lesson, not exactly topic, we will be discussing about the other formulae of Indira Gandhi.